Hey, it's Edna here. Welcome to the Seven Figure Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Edna with Seven Figure Real Estate. And today I have with me Shawn Quigg, all the way from Toronto, Ontario. Welcome, Shawn. It's nice to have you on the show.
Hi, Edna. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So give us a little background, Shawn. How did you get started working with real estate investors?
Well, great question. I actually got into real estate investing itself about 6 years ago, and it was completely by accident. I went to law school and left the job. So I decided I needed to find some way to generate some income to replace the income I was earning.
Okay.
So I bought a house in Windsor where I was going to law school and rented out the rooms to other students. And it didn't take long to realize that what I now know to be house hacking was a pretty interesting and profitable strategy. So, I did a little bit of digging. I bought another student rental, and things sort of progressed from there. As I was completing my articling, which for those of you who don't know, is like an internship type period for lawyers before they get called to the bar and get licensed, I started to think about how I could match my personal interests in real estate investing with my professional interests being a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with this niche of real estate investor lawyer, and no one was really doing it. And so, I thought, hey, maybe this is a way I can bring value to others on the legal side, right? Because I can speak the language and understand the strategies and sort of be a team player. And so, I built up a network, and then I joined Ryan Carson of Carson Law, who had been working with quite a number of investors as well. And so we've created this place where real estate investors can go for legal advice to help with their deals, to help with their structuring, with their joint venture agreements, with their wholesales, whatever it might be. Whether it's your very first wholesale deal or you're buying a large commercial multifamily or commercial building, we're there to help, and we understand and know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
It does make such a difference. Shawn, I've always tell my students, all your power team members should own real estate, because you don't really know until you own it, because there's just a whole different bag of worms when it comes to stuff like that, isn't it? I always tell the students, with realtors, we'll get them making an offer on an apartment building saying, yeah, we want to close in, 120 days. And they're going, no, you can't. You got to close in a month. You can't do that. And I go, that's when you say, and how many buildings do you own? And that's when you realize they don't own any, and So it's so important to have somebody on your team that owns real estate, because you've been there. You've been down every single road when it comes to buying it. And there's always nuances. And having a lawyer on your team that understands it, I believe. And you're right, there's not a lot out there, because we've been looking. We had to actually train our lawyer at the beginning, and he was very good. But then he passed away, and then we had to go looking for another. And now we have one that actually owns his own real estate. But it does make such a difference, because like you say, there's so many nuances, because you understand how the joint venture agreement has to be set up, how the mortgages have to look. Do you also deal with creative financing strategies to help people with things like vendor financing and stuff like that?
Oh, of course. That is half the game. And so finding a way to make deals work on the financing side is, I actually enjoy that part the most. I'm not a mortgage broker, but I work very closely with mortgage brokers to sort of help our mutual client get across the finish line. And whether that's a second, whether that's seller financing, whether that's unsecured money, whether that's RSP, borrowing, or TFSA borrowing, there are a number of different ways that we can put things together. And I really like trying to help contribute to putting that puzzle together so that we can get a client from, not owning real estate to owning a lot.
So what about when it comes to securities commissions challenges? Is that something that you can advise people on as well, how to avoid going down that rabbit hole?
Well, it is a rabbit hole. So you can say that. Securities law is a very particular area of law with some drastic consequences when you sort of stray outside whatever Securities Commission you answer to as a client. And I understand your audience is spread across Canada and perhaps into other countries. And so, I can speak to the Ontario Securities Commission a little bit, and enough to say that you really should have a securities lawyer. So, when we're dealing with clients who are putting together deals that require limited partnerships and giving out offerings to the public, not to the public as in an initial public offering, but to friends and family and business associates. I can give some real basic advice, like don't offer to the public, only to friends, family, and business associates.
Mhm.
But that's really the extent of it. And I bring in, people that I know in my network of lawyers to assist on the securities piece, because, what you don't know might, proverbially kill you. And in this sense, we definitely do not want to stray outside of what the Ontario Securities Commission allows. And so I bring the experts in.
Mhm. Good for you. So you've got teams that you would kind of refer people to that could talk them through any challenges they might have, how to set things up properly and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we help real estate investors, but we don't do everything. We don't do tax
Yeah.
advice. So I'm happy to refer people to tax advisors. We're not litigators, other than some small claims and some landlord tenant issues. And so I've got a full range of people who I can refer clients to who have litigation issues in the area of real estate investing law.
Mhm.
And same with construction, right? So construction's also a pretty niche area of law, and I know a little bit about the Construction Act and practiced some construction law earlier in my career, but that's still something else I would really want an expert to be dealing with, because you should only be dealing with experts, right? People that just do what you need, because you don't want a generalist. You want someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next for you, Shawn? Are you continuing to buy more real estate all the time?
I am. I'm working on a deal right now, actually for myself to live in. I'm going to go back to house hacking. I've bought a very large, or at least I've locked up under contract, a large single family home that we're going to convert to a fourplex with a nice little owner's unit in it. And, I was inspired to do that by the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the rules of wealth there is to turn your primary residence into an asset. So that was one of the sort of inspirations to do that. And of course, my previous experience proved fruitful as well. Yeah. And so, there's that. I'm also wholesaling a few deals and trying to actively buy some more multifamily out on the East Coast.
So East Coast meaning like New Brunswick, that sort of area?
Yeah, New Brunswick.
Oh, good for you. I have a few students that are looking in that area. The numbers seem to be pretty decent there. It's interesting when you talk about house hacking, because of course that term only seems like it's come out in the last few years. But right. Even as a renter, my story is, I'm not sure, Shawn, if you're familiar, but I was actually a single mom living in subsidized daycare, or living in subsidized housing with my daughter going to subsidized daycare when I was young. And, I always rented out rooms in my house, always. And I didn't even, think of it. It was like, I had a 3-bedroom house, a subsidized housing, and my brother lived with me for times and then different girlfriends, and didn't even know that was house hacking or really weight of wealth. It was just kind of, that helps make ends meet. I don't have to spend myself.
But that's the point, right? It makes ends meet. Those ends are part of the wealth building strategy.
You know what it is, but yeah, when I think back to that, lots of people did it. My brother rented out, portions of his room when he went to school, had a roommate. He bought a condo for his kids who had roommates, and they paid, so yeah, it's just a smart way of doing things. When you're advising people on joint venture agreements, do you have templates that you actually use that can help people kind of, need pieces of this, pieces of that, pieces of this? Or do you just kind of listen to what people tell you they need and you make it up? How do you work that out?
It's actually a great mix of both.
Okay.
So my process, I have a number of different forms of joint venture agreements that fit different scenarios, right? So depending on what the strategy is, I'm going to use one versus the other, right? If we're doing a BRRRR deal versus a flip, the language differs, right? The strategy and sort of the disposition of the property changes. And so the agreement's got to reflect that. I also have different agreements depending on how relationally close the parties are. If you're doing a joint venture with your brother, you probably don't need a 30-page joint venture agreement that sets out, 5 or 6 pages about how to arbitrate, when you can't decide what color to paint the living room. So you probably don't need that. But, if you've just raised capital because you've been active on Facebook and you met a private lender who's got a bunch of money from Vancouver and you're buying a house in Saskatoon and you're doing a BRRRR, well, then, this is a stranger. This is not someone who's relationally close to you. And so I prefer a longer, more robust version of the joint venture agreement. And then what I do is I get on a video call just like this, and I say, why don't you tell me about your deal, tell me about your strategy, and I ask some probing questions. How is everyone getting paid back? How is the cash being distributed? How are we dealing with equity? And a number of other things. And then I go ahead and I draft it. And then we get on another call after I've sent it out and the clients have reviewed it. And we get on another call and discuss, what I put together. Do we like it? Do we need to make any tweaks? Did I accurately sort of put down onto paper the agreement that the 2 or more people had come to? And once we're ready to go, we get a signing meeting. We do, it can be signed, and then you're off to the races.
Have you ever ran across a case where you thought all your ducks were in a row and yet it still turned out to be a challenge in the long run?
In terms of joint venture agreements?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually. I had a client right when I first joined Carson Law who had put together the most sophisticated joint venture proposal I've yet to see, and probably won't see another one for some time. It took me 4 days to draft the contract straight. And in the end, most of what I ended up drafting ended up being scrapped. So, but that's the job, right? So the deal sort of evolved as time evolved. And as the partner that my client was working with sort of got some legal counsel of his own and sort of changed his mind in terms of how he wanted to be reimbursed. My client had come up with a number of really creative strategies and options for his money partner to be able to cash out and to be able to do well. And it turns out his money partner really only wanted one of them. And so, we just sort of put the others to the side and we'll use those perhaps on the next deal. And they're already drafted. So it just really needs to be tailored to the specifics of that new deal. But that was certainly a tough one. That one took about 7 months to put together and to complete. And it was for a property that had not yet been locked up. And as I understand it, has been now. So definitely a challenge, but it was fun putting together. And when you get into the real intricate stuff, that's where it gets interesting for a lawyer, because there's so many nuances to sort of think through and formulas to think through. And it's really an intellectual exercise, which sort of makes the job fun.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But and it's interesting sometimes how you start out with one idea and it almost totally switches, based on maybe some experience other people have had and stuff. One of the things that we used to always tell the students when they're going to a lawyer or sending somebody for a second opinion is we'd say, you want to go in and say, I'm doing this deal. I'm not here to ask you if I should or shouldn't, because a lot of lawyers are actually deal breakers. You don't sound like that person because you're in real estate. You understand why people want to be there. But lots are so risk averse and everything else. They don't even want to, talk about it really. And so we say, go in and tell them, I'm doing this deal. We just are looking for your advice on how to structure it to protect the parties. We're not asking you to sign on the dotted line and give us permission to, do you ever get people coming in like that?
Oh, of course, because that's what we're taught to do in law school. We're taught to be the deal breaker, not intentionally, but we are. All of law school is structured trying to find problems in scenarios or to read judgments about cases where problems were discovered And so, we're trained to sort of pick up on what those problems might be and to identify them in advance. Now, the difference between a real estate investor lawyer and a regular real estate lawyer is that, I understand this is a venture, right? And it's an investment. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
Right? If we were offering guarantees, number one, we'd probably get a knock on the door from the Securities Commission.
Exactly.
But, number two, we'd all be doing it. But it's not that way. It's a venture. And so, I'm not here to tell my clients not to do deals. In fact, I've only had to do it once. And this was after 4 or 5 different strategies to try and actually make the deal a deal that it was palatable to take on the level of risk. Mm-hmm. And this was very recently, but it was a case where I couldn't recommend that my client do it. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I've never said don't do a deal. I will if I have to, but I'd much rather find a way to figure out how to protect people to a reasonable degree. Not a perfect degree, but a reasonable degree. And this is not just you, the client, the buyer / borrower, also your lender. Whether or not I have an obligation to that lender, this is a small community, and I certainly don't want to set up clients to burn their lenders, which will then in turn perhaps take a lender away from the marketplace, or also take that borrower's credit or
credibility, right? Yeah. That's something I've always said too. We need lawyers and accountants on our team because most of us don't think like that, right? I know I'm an eternal optimist. I always think, everything's going to go right and everything's going to work out 100%. And I always tell my lawyer right up front, that's me. So you'll know when I'm, questioning things. Right. But I need you to point that stuff out to me, because much as I am that optimist, I need the people on my team who can point out the stuff that could go wrong. And so I appreciate that you guys have had to study that and be cognizant of that all the time. Like I remember some accountant saying, I have to go down and go, like something that's out of the ordinary, something that's off and something that's wrong. I'm always looking for something wrong. So you hit the nail on the head, but we do need people like that on the team, because otherwise you can get burnt.
Well, you want to make an informed decision. You don't want to be going in blind.
Yeah.
So is my job is to say, these are all the potential problems. This is what's maybe perhaps realistic. This is worst case. This is best case. You decide, and you put it right back in an email to me, and then we proceed.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So, Shawn, how do people connect with you, reach out to you, and do you work across Canada or mainly just in Toronto, or what's your parameters for that?
I serve the entire province of Ontario. Whether you're doing deals in Windsor or Ottawa or Sudbury or anywhere north, or perhaps even in between those locations, I can help out because I'm licensed to practice in Ontario. Okay. For those of you outside of Ontario, I can help with structuring to a degree and partnerships, joint venture agreements to a degree, if the governing law of the contract is Ontario. And I can also help wholesalers who are wholesaling in other provinces as well. It just takes an extra sort of acknowledgement that I can't help on the property. But other than that, I can assist with out of Ontario wholesale deals. And the best way to reach me is, you can find me on our firm's website. You can send me an email, Shawn@carsonlaw.ca. You can find me on Instagram at the REI Lawyer. Same with Facebook. And, I'm on social media pretty regularly trying to help, answer questions and offer value. And you'll also, I'm on my email all the time. So anyone who wants to reach out, maybe you have a question, or if you've got something you need help with, I'd be delighted to assist.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I have a lot of students from Ontario, so it's nice to have some more power team members that we can refer to. And Shawn, do you also have people you can refer people to, like say mortgage brokers, other realtors, people that you've kind of dealt with over the years that you'd say, hey, this is a good person to deal with. Do you have people like that in your network too?
Oh, certainly. Right. The adage is so true, right? Your net worth is your network, or rather your network is your net worth. So, I have a tax advisor that I refer my clients to because I trust her to give good advice. I have a couple of mortgage brokers that I work with and refer people to who pretty much exclusively work with real estate investors and get it, right? Get the need for creative financing. They're not going to any of the top five to look for a high leverage, first time home buyer mortgage. They're down in the trenches, finding you private money, finding you unsecured money, finding you good lending products to be able to buy quickly or, distressed properties, et cetera. And of course, I know realtors in many of the major hotspots in Ontario who I work with and who work with me to make sure people are buying right. So, if you're in need of a connection like that, hit me up. I'd be happy to make an introduction.
Perfect. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shawn. It's been my pleasure to have you on. You're a wealth of knowledge. I love that. And we're definitely going to stay in touch.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. It's my sincere intention that you got value from this episode. If you're interested in learning more about building your passive income through real estate, either by investing with us as a joint venture partner or as a student discovering how you can attract investors to your deals and build your own 7-figure real estate portfolio by helping others build their passive income, check out my website, ednakeep.com, or watch my free masterclass at ednakeep.com/90 days to 5K.